Tina Cooks More Italian.
This is made possible through the generous support of KC's Body Connections Massage Center, connecting body, mind, and spirit. G's Hot Dog Cafe, home of the Chicago Dog. Enterprise Bank, we help create opportunities for your business. Papa John's Pizza, Leominster, Fitchburg, Marlborough, and Worcester. Today we're having an eggplant appetizer with broccoli, cauliflower, aloe, and pasta. Stay tuned. Welcome to Tina Cooks More Italian. I'm Tina Piermarini. Today we're going to start out, I'm going to do some infused oil because I want to do the eggplant appetizers, but I also want to do the broccoli and cauliflower aloe. Now when I do an aloe, I like to infuse my oil because it makes the garlic a little more tender, and instead of biting into a crunchy piece of garlic, you're biting into a nice soft piece of garlic, which I prefer. I'm going to clean about 3 heads of garlic, maybe 4. I need a little paring knife. Here we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Sorry. Okay. And then I'm going to slice them into rings, because if you don't like the garlic, you can always pull it out. If you chop it, it's very hard to pull out. So, well, that's what we're going to do. Now I'm going to use a little bit of this oil and garlic to brush on the eggplant, because we're going to roast the eggplant. We're going to cut it, we're going to roast it. These are going to be kind of like, you ever have crab cakes? Well, they're kind of similar to a crab cake, only they're made with eggplant. And I'm going to put a little bit of spinach and some sun-dried tomatoes and maybe a little feta cheese. It's going to be great. See how many. First I want to add some olive oil to here. Now I want to add enough olive oil to do my aloe and to brush the eggplant. So I'm going to really fill the bottom of this. Now you don't have to worry about if you don't use it all, because you can put this in a little container and save it. It'll stay fine. Because you've heated up the oil, you've heated up the garlic, and it's going to be great like that. We're just going to slice this nice and thin. I'm going to leave it in slices so that, like I said, if you don't like it, you can take it out. My daughter loves garlic. She can't ingest garlic. It kills her. I'm going to do 1 more clove because I don't think that's quite enough, because I want a nice garlicky flavor on this. Okay. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this oil and garlic and I'm going to put it on the stove. I'm going to put it on about a medium burner. I don't want it blasting high. And when you hear it start to sizzle, you shut it off and you let it sit. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get ready to do our eggplant. Let me move this garlic out of the way. Now, eggplant. Some people like to peel it, some people don't peel it. I'm a peeler. I just don't like the snap of the skin on the eggplant. I just don't like it. I don't feel it's a good texture. So if you like to leave your peels on, leave your peels on. If you don't, take them off. Now I'm just going to peel this. Now if I was baking this in like a eggplant parmesan or cooking it to just bread it up and fry it, I would, or for an eggplant, I would put salt and pepper and I would take the bitter out of it. But we're gonna roast this, so I'm not gonna do that at this point. I'm just gonna cut it and roast it. Okay, we'll get rid of that. I don't wanna throw my good garlic away by mistake. Now what I'm gonna do is, where we're gonna be cutting these into cubes, I'm gonna slice them the long way, like this. They don't have to be real thin, because you wanna cut cubes out of them. Be careful doing this. You don't want to cut your fingers off, which I've done a few times. It's not fun. Between cuts and burns, when I used to work in a restaurant, I'll tell you, I always had bandages. All right, now we're going to take this. This is just a regular sheet pan. I'm going to spray some non-stick oil on it because I want some. Oh, that's not working very good now, is it? It's all right. I got my pastry brush here. We'll just do that. That's all. Because I don't want the eggplant to stick. Okay, now we're gonna line these up like this. Actually, what I would like to do is use my oil and garlic that I'm making over there to season these up. They'll be perfect. I'm gonna fit these on here if it kills me. There we go. Okay, we're gonna wait for our oil and garlic to sizzle and get in there and what's the word I want to use? Infuse. Thank you, Carl. And then we're going to come back and season these up because I want to use the infused oil, and then we'll season them and we'll bake them. Okay, now at this point, the garlic is bubbling, and you want to just move it around a little bit so that it all loosens up and gets individual, okay? You don't want it to get brown. Brown it'll taste like bitter, okay? And you just shut off the heat, and you just let that go. And when we come back to it, it's going to be nice and soft because that oil will just render all the flavor out of it. Okay, basically this is a bowl of very hot water, and I'm going to take a bag of broccoli. See how it's steaming? Because it's nice and hot. I don't want to cook the broccoli. I just want to take the ice out of it. I like to use the frozen vegetables when you can't get a nice fresh head of broccoli or a nice fresh head of cauliflower. These are great. All right, now what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to set this aside because I want the ice to come out of them, and then I'll rinse them out after. Now we've got that oil that has infused, so I'm going to grab this oil real quick. Okay, let me put my towel down because I don't want to, although I don't think you can kill these counters. I've had them for so long. We're just going to take a little bit of oil and we're going to brush our eggplant with them because it's going to have a nice infused flavor. Okay, just brush them lightly. This is going to help the eggplant roast because eggplant is like a sponge. It's gonna take in all this oil and all this flavor when it roasts. I am going to do both sides. I'm going to season with granulated garlic, salt, pepper, and parsley. Okay, so now I'm going to put these into a 400-degree oven. They're going to take about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay, basically while the eggplant's cooking, I'm a spinach snob. I won't buy frozen spinach. I don't like it. It's all stems. I actually take the time to stem my spinach, take all the stems out because I can't stand them. If you don't mind the stems, that's fine. I take my stems out, I soak them in water, I bring them to a boil, I'll use oil and garlic, season it with salt and pepper, and I'll oil fry them in the pan, and that's how I love my spinach. I've done this about 1 billion times on the show, but for all the new viewers out there, I just wanted to recap how I do my spinach. Okay, now we're going to get started on our eggplant appetizers. I've taken the eggplant out of the oven. Halfway through cooking, I turned them over so that they got a little golden brown on each side. I finished the spinach. Oh, that spinach is done to perfection. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the eggplant. Some of it's, you know, soft. You want it soft. You don't want it, it's got to be nice and tender. And we're going to take it and we're going to cut it up into squares. That in the bowl. We're going to do all of this eggplant. These are going to be great. I think when you see how they look and how they taste, if you like eggplant, this is going to be a great appetizer. I'm going to serve it with a sauce on the bottom of the plate so that if you want to dip, you can. And if you don't want to dip, you don't have to. But I got to have sauce with eggplant. It's just like garlic or anything else. You got to have garlic and sauce. Up. See how nice and soft that is? It's like a, it's really like a, it's kind of mushy is what the texture is. But it's roasted, so it's nice and sweet, and it's seasoned, so it's got all the nice flavors in it. Okay, I'm going to do that. Now, I'm also going to add some of my spinach, because I like spinach with eggplant too. It's really good. I'm going to add about, I'm not measuring, this is difficult, so I would say this is a good half a cup, 3/4 of a cup, and I'm going to chop this up a little bit too. I don't want to have big strings of spinach. Okay, now like I said, this is kind of like going to be like a crab cake. It's the same general idea. I'm going to use eggs and cheeses, and I'm going to flour it, and we're going to fry it. It's going to be delicious, I think. All right, let's move this over here. Thank God I got my towel because I'd be lost without my towel. My moppina. Okay, now we have this going. Just gonna mix that around. If you see, I got more eggplant than I do spinach. That's basically how you want it. Okay, we're gonna add a couple of tablespoons of flour because it's gonna pull this together a little bit. Okay. I'm gonna add some feta cheese. This is my old package. And then this is my new package. Now I would say I'm going to add about, I'm going to measure because I don't measure stuff. So I figured I'd try to measure on TV. That's about 1/4 cup of feta cheese. I don't want too much feta cheese because I'm going to also add some Romano cheese. Okay? We're going to add, let's start out with 1/2 cup and see how that looks. Yeah. Now we're going to add at least 3/4 cup of Romano cheese because that's going to give it some nice flavor too. Now to this we're going to also add about, I'm going to start out with 1.5 cups of breadcrumbs. Now these breadcrumbs are seasoned. All right, there's one. And 1/2. There we go. Now at this point, I'm going to add some eggs. I'm going to start out with one and see how wet it gets. You don't want this wet, wet, wet. You want it just enough so that you can form a ball and pat it down flat and fry it. Now see, just by looking at this texture, okay, this is definitely soft enough. We don't need another egg. Anything, I might throw in another tablespoon of breadcrumbs just to pick it up because it's a little mushy and we don't want it mushy. So I'm going to add in 2 more tablespoons of breadcrumbs. This is a good texture. You don't want it real wet, but you don't want it real dry. I'm going to let this rest a minute because as the eggplant absorbs the flour and the breadcrumbs, when I come back, it might be a little mushy, so we might have to add a little more breadcrumbs. Okay, now I've actually drained off the extra water. Now, because I soaked this in water, I'm going to want to squeeze out the cauliflower and broccoli because it will hold water. Once I squeeze out all the water, it's going to absorb the oil and the garlic. Now what I'm going to do is I'm putting this on, and I do like to add at least a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more, of butter to my aloe. I just like it a lot better. Okay? I'm going to also, just for a change, just for a little bit of a different taste, I'm going to take some crushed sun-dried tomatoes and drop about a teaspoon in there, just to get a little bit of a different flavor. I never liked sun-dried tomatoes, but then I started working with them, and I like them a lot. They give it a nice flavor. Now this is going to seem like a lot of oil, but it's not. Okay? Now we're going to start the process of wringing out our vegetables and throwing them in here. Now these are not really cooked. They kind of just pick them off and freeze them. That's why they get they absorb a lot of water and stuff. But I like these just as much as fresh, really. Well, actually, that's not the truth. Fresh is the best, but sometimes you go to the vegetable stand today and the vegetables are just not there. Now, when you see how much water I've squeezed out of these vegetables, you're going to understand why I'm doing this. But until you see it, you're not going to believe it. Okay, now, just to show you, that's how much water is in those frozen vegetables when you thaw them out like that. Okay, now we're going to season this up. Okay. And our eggplant appetizers are sitting right there. I wanted to call them eggplant cakes, but Carl doesn't seem to think that that's a good enough Italian name, so I didn't call my mother and see how to say cake in Italian, but then I didn't want to confuse people and make them think that it was a dessert. All right, we're going to add a little salt, a little bit of parsley. Now, when I add seasoning, I add them to taste. And everybody asks me, why do you keep locking these? The reason why I keep locking these is because when I work in the kitchen, I work fast and furious. And I've knocked them over a couple of thousand times and lost all my seasoning, because once it falls on the floor, I mean, you know, there's a 30-second rule, but seasoning, it kind of mixes with the dirt. All right, we're going to add some granulated garlic. Even though we have all that garlic, we're still adding more. We're going to be breathing fire today. Some nice, fresh, crushed pepper. Now, if you like the red pepper, the crushed red pepper, you could add some of that too. I don't like it. I can't eat hot. It bothers my stomach. I love hot. It doesn't love me, in other words. Now we're going to toss this around, get all those seasonings mixed in. Oopsie. Broccoli thinks he's not going to get eaten. I got news for him. All right. Now I'm actually going to let these cook because I don't like my vegetables like stone when we're doing an aloe. So, I'm not supposed to bang like that, but I just did. Okay. I'm going to bring this down to a medium-low heat. I just want the flames just barely touching the pan. I'm going to put my cover ajar, like so. And we're going to let those sweat out a little bit. Now, in the meantime, I don't know if you can get this corner, Carl, but we are going to check out the eggplant stuff. Let me see. Tastes really, it tastes really good. The only thing is I still think it's a little bit sticky. Now I had a total of 2 cups of breadcrumbs in that little pan. So you're going to want to add 2 cups of breadcrumbs. And I took out my wooden spoon, so naturally I'm using my fingers, which is okay. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to, is this lit good enough for you, Carl? Okay. The next step I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to roll them like meatballs, maybe a little bit bigger, not too big. because I want them to be like an appetizer. And you're gonna crush them down like this, like make a little cake. And then you're just gonna flour them lightly. And we're gonna put them on the board. Ooh, that feta cheese adds a nice sharp flavor to it. Oh, it's delicious. Okay, we got one more in the dish. Okay, there we go. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stack my covers. I'm going to check my cauliflower and broccoli. Ooh, it smells good. It really does. I love it. This hasn't quite sweat enough for me. It's still a little crunchy. I don't want them crunchy. Now what I've done, I've got my water on high. This is my back burner, so I put this on high. We're going to fry these eggplant cakes or my eggplant appetizers in oil, but I'm not using an olive oil. I'm using a vegetable oil. I got a towel and a spatula ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my pasta. I'm using big shells. Uh-oh, be careful when you drop water and oil. Very dangerous. Buddy. All right, now we're going to drop our little eggplant cakes. Oh, yeah. Just gonna let them fry so they get nice and golden brown. And the cauliflower is going good. And the broccoli with that little touch of sun-dried tomatoes. It's gonna be excellent. I'm gonna try to turn these now. Oh yeah, I want them a little bit golden brown. Some of them are sticky. Maybe the flour wasn't really. Okay, now we're gonna let these sides go. Nice, and see how nice and golden brown they are? The spinach is gonna add a nice, and really nice flavor to it, which is good. I'm gonna take this cover off now, because we don't need to steam these anymore. I think they're steamed enough. We're gonna let them just fry in the oil. Okay, I'm gonna take out these little eggplant cakes. I think the eggplant cakes is gonna stick, Carl. Oh, they look good. Oh, they look so good. They're gonna be delicious, I can just tell. The last one here. There we go. Stay on that plate. Okay. There are our eggplant. Look at how beautiful those are. Can't wait to plate these up and eat them. All right, now this is how I want to plate up these appetizers. Now you can give everybody one. I'm going to give everybody two. I'm going to put a bed of sauce in the bottom like this. Because you don't want a ton of sauce, I don't think. But you got to have some. You could use marinara. You could probably use an Alfredo. You could use whatever sauce you want to use. Put a little bit, one there. One there. A little bit of Romano cheese. And there we go. And this is going to be our eggplant appetizers. Oh boy. Alrighty, now these are ready to go. Now the same rule applies when you do a pasta toss. You want to save your pasta water. Put a little bit of pasta water in this aloe. It's not going to hurt it at all. Because you got these shells at an al dente stage, al dente. So what you can do is you can finish cooking them off with the broccoli and cauliflower. Now we're going to toss this around because I want to get the broccoli and cauliflower in there. I'm going to add a handful of Romano cheese. And I am going to add just a little tiny tish of pasta water, maybe about a half a cup or so, just to wet the pasta down, and it will mix nicely with the cauliflower and broccoli and the sun-dried tomatoes. Now what I want to do here too is I want to add a little more crushed pepper, a grated brown pepper. I like pepper on my aloe, so. Like I said, if you like the red crushed pepper, you can add that too at this point. It's really, it'll make it hot, but it's good. Okay, cheese is melting, the oil is all nice and coated. Okay, now we're ready to plate her up. And that's how quick that goes together once you get your vegetables all done. Okay, get my plate here, get my, oh, my towel's gone. There we go. Doesn't that look awesome? I love this. I'll do that at home. Okay. And of course, a little bit more cheese, because I am a cheese freak, as you can see. Oh, and there is our broccoli and cauliflower aloe with a little surprise of sun-dried tomatoes. Let's go try these out. Okay, now it's time for us to try our food. Carl and I discussed it and we decided we're going to call these eggplant frittelles. Right? A little bit of sauce. Very, very good. Now remember, when you're making these, when you get your batter done, taste them. Make sure they taste good. If not, add some more seasoning. Now my favorite. This stuff is just awesome. Ready? Here we go. Just the right. Oh, they're cooked perfect. These two dishes are definitely try because they are wonderful. Thank you for watching Tina Cooks, More Italian. Have a good night. All right, ready? I don't want them mushy. Oh. Pop. Carl and I decided we're going to call these, what are we calling them, Carl? Eggplant Fritelli. Fritello. Eggplant Frittelle. Right? Frittelle. Okay. I don't want them mushy. Oh.
All right, ready?